I know we'll probably have more people jump on as we go, but we'll go ahead and get started in the interest of everyone's time. My name is Tina Dessart. I'm the interim director for the U.S. National Water Safety Action Plan. We also have Megan Ferraro, our current chair, with us today. And I saw David, there he is, David Bell on the call as well, who's part of our steering committee. So thank you both for joining us today also. We're excited to have this conversation today. So as part of our state office hours and our kind of our monthly office hours process, we try and bring in guest speakers to share information on work that's being done around the country. And today we're really happy to have with us Marrick McDonald and Kaitlin Krause from the New York State Temporary Commission to Prevent Childhood Drowning to share information on the work that they've been doing over the last, I believe it's 3 years or so. More on a legislative affairs kind of effort, but certainly we'll let them kind of lead that and share that information with you all. I would ask that if you aren't already, and I think everybody is, to mute your mics just so that we don't get feedback while Kaitlin and Marrick are speaking, and then to save your questions or throw them into the chat until the end of their presentation, and then we'll certainly reserve time for questions and answers at the end. This is being recorded, and I will follow up after the conversation today with the link for everyone. So if you want to share it with colleagues or circle back to the conversation, then you'll have it not only in your inbox, but we'll make sure to post it up on our website on the resources page as well. So with that, I will turn it over to Marrick and Kaitlin.
Hi, I'm Marrick McDonald. I am the chair and a commissioner of the New York State Temporary Commission to Prevent Childhood Drowning. I was appointed by the governor, and I have 30 years of aquatic experience, over 30 years of aquatic experience, and I'm a certified school teacher and administrator in the state of New York. And I will dart out a little early because I'm actually at the State Physical Education Conference. So if you have other questions that we don't get to, I will be glad to reach out to you personally after that. And Miss Kate.
Hey everyone, my name is Kate. I'm the founder and executive director of Rising Tide Effect. I serve on a task force for New York City on lifeguard and water safety, and I had the privilege of being an appointed commissioner for the Temporary Commission to Prevent Drowning, which is what brings us here today. And I was appointed by the speaker. I'm a former competitive swimmer. And I was able to take my love and translate it into the business world, where I helped grow a, for-profit swim school from 3 locations to 14 throughout New York City over the course of a decade. And as I did it, I realized that as we expanded into new neighborhoods, so many of the people that live there were not going to be able to access these lessons. During COVID, I lost my job and started my own organization, Rising Tide Effect, which has helped inform my work and bring a equity lens to the conversation on the commission. With that, I'm going to share my screen if that's okay, Tina. Okay. Just bear with me 1 sec. Oops. Sorry. Okay. All right, Marrick, why don't you kick us off?
Okay, so the New York State Temporary Commission to Prevent Childhood Drowning was established because of the multiple drownings and the Rockaway, which is in the city, New York City. And the legislator, Assemblywoman Stacey Pfeffer Amato, wanted to attack that issue. And she partnered with Senator Tim Kelly, who is now a House member. And Tim Kelly's in the Buffalo area. So Erie County, Buffalo has the highest drowning rate upstate. So that was a great partnership for the first ever nation government mandated commission. So we are commissioners, not committee members. That's a huge distinction. We'll get into that in a second. And we're the only one that is only one that is legislated. All of the other ones are grassroots, where we are from the top down, from the legislator. So next slide. So we are a commission. So we were created by state law. We have formal authority and mandates. We integrated data, and we had cooperation from all the state agencies and all of the nonprofits throughout New York State. We were able to, as commissioners, there's 9 of us who were appointed by some level of legislator or the governor. And together as a team, we created the comprehensive drowning report, which you can find on our website. It's over 230 pages of recommendations and thoughts regarding what we want aquatic education to be in New York State. As a committee, they're more of an advisory role, where we had to follow public meeting law. All of our meetings are recorded. You can hear from all of the experts that we heard from. They're all on our website. The easiest way to get there is ny.gov and put drowning in the search engine, and you'll be able to see all of the work that we did. Kate?
I think it's just important to note something.
Yep.
So the commission was formed because of the epicenter that is Rockaway. If you're not familiar with this place, it's part of New York City's ocean beaches. It's like city parks land. And every summer, there are at least 7 drowning deaths on these beaches within the course of like 2 months. And that might not sound like a lot, or maybe it does, but it's something that's really, really hard to watch, and it brings with it helicopters. So the whole community, the whole peninsula, hair stands up when they hear the helicopter, because they know what that means. And so Assemblymember Pfeffer Amato, a lifelong Rockaway resident, her mother was an assemblywoman for the same district. I mean, they've looked at this issue and like lived with this issue for so long that that was the impetus to start this commission. Up until then, it's been like a fragmented conversation locally around this epicenter. Everyone's outraged, everyone's sick to their stomach, but there was nothing that was really being done until she got this commission idea across the board. And since then, there's been a groundswell of interest and momentum on water safety downstate in New York State, New York City, but even, because of the commission throughout the state. So I think that's been really exciting for the cause.
The other caveat to that is our governor is also from Buffalo. Her children grew up in the Buffalo area. They went to a school district in Buffalo. So with Erie County, which is Buffalo, being the largest, having the highest drowning rates in upstate, that she's definitely an advocate for aquatic education throughout New York State. So what we did, we had five goals, which we'll get into in a second. But we had a mandate to create research, evaluate programs that are educating children's parents and caregivers. We worked with lots of water safety experts, both national and international experts. Our commissioners have over 300 years of aquatic education themselves, experience with aquatic education or aquatic management. We worked with public engagement. We had town hall meetings to get the feedback from parents and aquatic professionals throughout the state. And the drowning report was just released. It is, like I said, it's on our website. And we went through everything because we knew that this would probably be our only chance to make a full understanding, where we had the eyes of the state legislature and the governor to get these recommendations passed or over the finish line. These are all of the commissioners listed by where they live, by county. Kevin Clark is a retired science teacher and swim coach. Catherine Cole-Glazer is the one of the vice presidents of the YMCA New York City. Kaitlin already introduced herself. Casper Lassiter is an executive director of Children's Aid in New York City. Gwen McNamara works for the American Red Cross. She's a regional manager for the American Red Cross. Heidi Reese is the co-owner of Aquaviva Swim School. Mike Schwitalski is a physical education teacher in the Buffalo City School Districts, and he also runs the City Swim Project, which is the largest USA swimming diverse program in the country. And Brian Tobin is the former mayor of the city of Cortland, and he is also the varsity men's and women's swim coach for City Cortland. This data, it speaks for itself. We've all seen this data. New York in our state, 32% increase in drownings from year to year. Our current median was 242. It's the highest in 2 decades. We're struggling, like many places, with a lifeguard shortage. We have the New York Swims program, which is the governor's initiative. New York Swim stands for statewide investment in more swimming. She's made the largest investment in infrastructure and aquatic infrastructure in the state since the New Deal in the 1930s. And she has been completely invested in the commission, including giving us an extra year without us asking. She asked for legislators to give us an extra year so that we could give her a top-notch report, and that's exactly what I think we did.
I think it's also important to mention here the increase in drownings that New York State saw. Like a 32% jump is big. And that's not necessarily just from recreational swimming issues, that's from extreme flooding. Something that we have here is people drown in their basements. It's something that's happening in New York City, downstate, but that's been, an attributor to these numbers. And yeah, so holistically looking at drowning prevention takes us outside the pool and the beach. It takes us into, the climate adaptation and resilience, spaces around water.
So these are the 4 goals that we were legislated to work on. Determine an appropriate age or stage of child development when children can properly begin water safety and swimming instruction, and develop statewide learning standards for that. We have 7 learning standards that we created, and they parallel the New York State physical education standards with 1 additional standard. The last standard, when I was working with other educators from across the state, aquatic educators, they felt that we needed a safety standard specifically for safety. In that goal, when we went through it, that goal we've outlined, given that school districts are the largest location where schools are. I've done a lot of research on the physical education, teacher education programs throughout New York State, and are they meeting the need of the market, where we have 40% of school districts have at least 1 pool in the state of New York. Goal B was investigate and evaluate the feasibility and effectiveness of programs which incentivize parents and guardians to enroll children in water safety. So it was more of a research goal, but those that worked on that goal made recommendations regarding what they learned in their town halls. Develop a comprehensive, goal C, develop a comprehensive program, plan of action for public and private partnerships between state and community centers, nonprofits, recreational facilities, swim instructors, and other relevant stakeholders. As with
Okay, I found this on the web.
with other relevant stakeholders such as parks and pools to provide access for free swimming instruction and determine the feasibility of such programs. So one of the things that we're proposing in there is the Office of Water Safety Education. It's a state office to assist on developing and providing support for swim instructors and aquatic community throughout the state. Goal C is develop an implementation plan to ensure that swimming safety programs are available in underserved communities. And we broke that down into both underserved communities and under-resourced communities because there's a difference. And goal E, develop a comprehensive plan for public awareness campaign to ensure parents and guardians receive information on the importance of children receiving basic water safety and swimming instruction. That was Kate's goal, so I'll let her share that information with you.
Yeah, just on goal C, it's the Office of Water Safety.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Its original
Not
title
just-
was
Not education. Yeah.
its original title was Office of Water Safety Education, so sometimes I slip in education. My apologies, Kate.
No, all good. It's an important distinction because you'll see if and when you read the report and you get into it, the office is looking at not just the education piece. So we didn't want it to get pigeonholed that way. Yeah, I worked personally on goal C and goal E. For goal E, this is something that's, it's really important for the state, and it's something, just public safety education is vital towards public health and safety. And so looking at the feasibility and how that could work for the state in a sustainable way, creating these campaigns through partnerships, which are like locally informed, groups, is the model. But I hope that you all might at least check out at least the summary, but if not, get into the reading there.
You want to go, Kate? Kate,
Kate, I think you're on mute.
you are on mute.
Thank you. Sorry.
Thanks.
Okay. So progress to date, where we are now. We've conducted the statewide listening sessions with expert panels and public meetings through these things we call town halls. We engaged national and international experts across aquatics, healthcare, education, and public safety. We completed a comprehensive review of the regulatory frameworks, drowning data gaps, infrastructure challenges, and community needs. And we delivered the executive summary and recommendations report just recently. Within the 5 goals that Marrick covered, we realized that the issue, as I was alluding to before, is far-reaching across all sectors. And so our recommendations came after, they're obviously within those 5 goals, but we expanded upon that and rolled out like 24 other recommendations that weren't neatly categorized under those goals.
3
The current phase right now is we're sharing recommendations nationally. Thank you for this opportunity today for us to get to share this work with you all. We're preparing dissemination materials for policymakers, agencies, and for the public. We want to take what's in this report, get it into legislation, so we can start actually seeing these changes hit the system. We're assisting with next steps for statewide action, implementation, and interagency coordination. How we got people to the table. This was interesting. Our key strategies included leveraging legislative authority to require cross-agency participation. So we had the attention of the Department of Health and state parks, for example, which were instrumental in getting these conversations started and continuing to have these conversations with experts and other commission members and the general public but keeping it rooted in what actually happens and what actually goes on and what regulations currently exist that we're having to kind of navigate around, which was something that we realized is creating unnecessary barriers. So part of our recommendations deal with a more standardized regulatory framework across all sectors. We built credibility through research, through expert testimony, and transparency. We had a number of really great groups on the call. We had the Zach Foundation, we had the Water Safety Coalition, we had different nonprofits and different experts in media and in public health speak, which really helped inform a lot of the ideas that came up. Like I said, we engaged coalitions, local government, nonprofits, swim schools, for-profit side and nonprofit side, and of course, family advocates. We centered community voices, especially those directly affected by drowning or water inequity. So bringing in the equity lens, hearing from either as a commission or on the side, and bringing ideas and comments and testimony to the commission so that we could open up and hear as many voices as possible. And then probably I think the most important thing, the important strategy that we implemented was positioning drowning prevention as a public safety, equity, and resilience issue, not letting it just sit in aquatics or recreation, which I think for those who maybe when they've heard about drowning prevention before and it went right over their head because it was in this recreation bucket, they were now taking a much different, it's almost like they turned the battery up a little and they could hear the messaging. They were way more attentive. So I think this was a really good strategy. And the result was a diverse, committed, statewide group aligned under just one mission. You know, the biggest hurdles that we encountered, and you know, I would love to know just by like a raise of hands on this call, who else feels this pain, but the fragmented data across agencies and reporting. It's pretty serious in New York. Yeah. And this is my opinion now, just speaking to this, but it's probably a lot worse than what we think it is because numbers are not accurately reported or captured. Depending on the time, depending on the place, there's all these little loops and these threads that it's got to get better. So that's something that's really been frustrating statewide, citywide, and needs to change. The lack of standardized reporting, especially for non-fatal drownings. You know, the statistic that we know, and I think that you all also put out in your research is 1 in 8 are non-fatals. Could be a lot worse, could be a lot higher. Regulatory inconsistencies among state ed, Department of Health, parks, and municipalities. And so like as all the great people here from your respective states, you know, the regulatory inconsistencies exist in New York, probably exist in your state. This is something that's worth looking at. Infrastructure constraints such as pool scarcity, aging facilities, lifeguard shortages. For us as a state, our last big push on infrastructure spend was with FDR and the New Deal. Since then, pools really haven't been built, and at this point, they're like 100 years old. So there's been, through the leadership of Governor Hochul, New York Swims, which created CapEx for infrastructure and building new pools and repairing. And so far, I mean, I think that looks like it's something that's great and continues to be worked through. And then we also encountered deep disparities in access affecting Black, Brown, rural, immigrant, and low-income communities. These challenges shaped our recommendation for a coordinated statewide approach. Insights and strategies. You know, we implemented this early on by inviting the internationally renowned experts, coalitions, experienced experts, and government agencies to speak with the commission. Like Marrick said, we had like 300 years combined of expertise on the commission, but to really serve the entire population of New York State, which is very diverse, we really had to bring in all other voices. The other thing that we did was we backed everything with research. of course, there's like the feeling that we had and the instincts that were telling us, but we had to bring it back to make it evidence-based. And you'll see that throughout the port. We've sourced our data. Everything is linked. Some of the insights early on for us, again, were the need for regulatory consistency, that drownings have reached record highs in recent years, claiming over 230 lives in 2021 alone. We know that there are certain communities at greater risk due to decades of disinvestment. And, just the cost of swimming lessons, as someone looking for lessons is enormous. We also know the cost to operate swim lessons these days is not what it used to be. And the other insight that we had is that we need relevant and timely data of all bodies of water, regardless if they're regulated with a staff or lifeguard or not. So it's easier to get information about who's drowning in regulated things that are lifeguarded zones than someone who falls in the river. And for New York State, we have 500, or New York City, for example, we have 520 miles of coastline. Only 14 of those are regulated. So people drown oftentimes outside those 14 miles. And right now, their data, those deaths, are not being captured, I would say, correctly. What surprised us? Unanimous support from agencies, communities, and stakeholders. Everyone recognized the urgency. There were strong interests from schools and parents in integrating water safety early, which is great. And there's a high willingness from all aspects of the aquatic market to partner with the state. So what that literally means is, the for-profit swim school providers were keen, the nonprofit providers were keen, everybody's looking to partner with the state. What was easier than expected? Getting experts to participate. National leaders were eager to contribute. Dr. Langendorfer was a huge asset to the commission, as an example. Identifying shared goals across agencies despite different mandates. We had the Department of Health and Parks on every single call, talking, rolling up sleeves, figuring out, okay, this is what we're doing, this is what we're doing, this is how we're reporting it, this is how we're reporting it, finding common threads, and really establishing drowning prevention as a bipartisan issue. Both sides of the aisle care about this. Both sides of the aisle are working together on this issue. I'd be curious to hear from Marrick as chair of the commission. Was there anything that surprised you?
I think the surprises are happening to me right now in regards to for example, the state EMS conference. There was a section on drowning prevention, and that just happened last weekend. And several lifeguard instructors were texting me during that conference, shocked to see something with drowning prevention. They're not arguing that it shouldn't have been there, but it's finally there with the recognition of and the more talk about drowning and drowning prevention education in Albany. So that's definitely a positive.
So unique to New York, we have brought forward a concept of water proficiency, and we've really centered the work around that, creating a common language, of course, so everyone knows what we're talking about, and kind of breaking and tackling this in a few different components. Water proficiency is the sum of all personal aquatic movements that help prevent drowning, as well as the associated water safety knowledge, attitude, and behaviors that facilitate safety in and around the water. So it's skills and it's the the wherewithal around water. It's broken into two components: water competency and situational awareness of water.
Situational knowledge of water.
Situational awareness of water. Water competency is water skills, it's rescue skills, and it's water smarts. Situational awareness of water is the recognition of conditions or experiences, which include what you've learned and what you're experiencing in the moment, to kind of read the situation and protect yourself. So being able to assess risk in and around water. Marrick, anything else you want to add to that?
Well, the situational knowledge of water So the reason that came about is because we had a lot of drownings during Hurricane Ida in one region of New York City because they weren't expecting that was the first hurricane that made landfall in New York City. And so they didn't realize that the power of water could reverse their piping. And so their basement started to flood from within, from under, it came in and up. And so there were, I think, 14, if I remember the number correctly, New Yorkers who drowned during Ida. And if they had known the power of water and what water could have done, that would have helped them and given them the opportunity to understand that maybe we should leave, maybe we should get to higher water, maybe we shouldn't be in a basement apartment. And so, and during that whole hurricane between New Jersey, New York, and Connecticut, 91 individuals perished. So we took a look at just, yes, we're advocating for swimming skill-based water safety education, but also we're going to recognize that there are going to be people who won't take that skill-based water safety education, or there's more, and there's more to water safety than just the water competency skill-based education, because drowning numbers kept going up at the same time. So what can we do? What is the piece we're missing? And we felt that the piece we were missing was that piece of giving the New Yorkers water safety, waterless water safety education regarding areas that could keep themselves safe. So, like, for example, I'm an upstater, true upstater. And so when we got talking about rip currents and what they look like, that's not something that I have exposure to because I'm, central New York. But when they were describing them looking like, graph paper, a grid pattern, and if you see that pattern in the water, that's not where you should go. That's knowledge that I didn't have. But we want to make sure that all New York City and the island, those individuals have that so that they can be safe in and around the environment that they are in.
To like put a finer point on it, if drowning is 95% preventable,
Mhm.
then knowing what's a hazard and what could, be fatal goes a long way.
Mhm.
And what we're seeing in New York City is people are drowning in rip currents who don't even know what a rip current is, let alone that they just walked into one.
And the last point on that is we've also added 3 additional water competencies, and the way I remember them is FIB, flood safety, because we want to make sure that people have flood knowledge. Ice safety, because we have had a lot of drownings of people walking or snowmobiling or driving on ice, thinking it's thick enough for them to hold their weight. And boat safety, and I'm putting a disclaimer on this because I'm going to mention something that is sensitive to individuals. During 9/11, that we had the largest boat launch to remove people from New York City, from the islands, and get them away from harm after the towers went down. There were 500,000 individuals that were evacuated in 9 hours to get them off the island, because that was really, besides walking, the only way to get off that island. And a lot of them struggled. That was their first time that they were on a boat. So we want to make sure that they have safety knowledge, our citizens have safety knowledge in case, not foreshadowing, hopefully, but in case something happens. We want to make sure our citizens have that knowledge so that they're not going to be afraid to get on a boat if they need to get off the island.
Okay, our next steps, moving this from recommendations to action. First order of business would be to establish the Office of Water Safety to coordinate cross-agency rollout. Build statewide data sharing and a unified water safety reporting system. These first 2 points that I've just mentioned are all included in Goal C if you want to read about them more. Pilot universal water safety education at early ages with evidence-based curriculum. In our report, we do call for universal access to swim instruction and universal access to water safety education through the schools. So expanding access through partnerships, pool optimization, portable pools, and school-based models. So looking into what those pop-ups would take, these temporary pools, all the different things on the market these days. Pass legislation to mandate water safety education in the classroom with curriculum. You can see this bill, we've tried to pass it twice. It's going for its third attempt this session. It's Assembly Bill 1080. The text right now as it reads in the bill is being updated to reflect the recommendation in the commission's report. So the hope is that now that we have a commission report to back this, because getting curriculum changes, as I was told, is near impossible. But with it rooted in the commission's work, hopefully it'll be successful. Increased workforce development, lifeguarding, swim instruction, and aquatic career pipelines, and launching a statewide public awareness campaign to reach parents and caregivers. All the next steps align with the report and can be phased in statewide. Some advice for others starting this work, and I think it's really comes from our key lessons learned, right? Which is number one, and I don't need to tell everybody here because I think we're all, feeling the same way about it. Start with the data, even if it's imperfect. It's the data gaps that reveal where the system needs to evolve. Build a coalition early, include government, families, clinicians, swim experts, and community voices. It doesn't need to be just a bunch of aquatic heads. It can be cross-sector, different agencies, things like that. Keep equity at the center. Who is drowning, where they're drowning, and why they're drowning. If you can serve that group of people, all of the dividends and spiral outs from that will help serve and lift the rest of the community. But if you don't keep it equity centered, then you're going to continue to keep a group of people who are currently not being served out of the equation. This is an important one. Treat drowning as a public safety and public health, not just recreation. Like, this is a crisis, not a crisis in recreation, but a crisis in public health. Secure political will. Mandated authority, accelerates change, no doubt. Engage national partners to ensure enlightenment with your all framework and the World Health Organization's framework. When it's rooted in national standards and best practices, there's more support there. And communicate early and often. Transparency builds trust and momentum. We met in the beginning every week, then we met every other week as a commission for like 3 years. And then on the side of all that were our kind of breakout groups. God knows all the hours Marrick and I worked together to get the report across the line. Like, communication is truly everything. And just put together like a little summary slide to tie this up a bit. But let's go here. Really, we hope that we've positioned New York as like a national model for state level drowning prevention. And, we're now entering the phase of like sharing the materials, educating people, and trying to implement over the course of this legislative session and the next, a lot of the recommendations. And I think ultimately, once this report is taken in and processed by all the experts, and also replicated in other places, the momentum will be too big, the wave will be too strong for it to not knock down whatever other barriers remain. in getting this issue advanced and closer to the mission of zero drowning deaths. Any questions for Marrick and I?
So, Kaitlin, there are a couple of questions in the chat. One is the commission was temporary. Does the commission group itself continue to work together, or has that work been done now, with the exception of kind of the rollout processes? Are you? I guess the question goes back to like, are you still meeting? And then at what point will that pass off to someone else?
The commission disbands in December. We do have a recommendation for a future commission related to waterfront climate adaptation, resilience, things like that. It needs to be looked at. Marrick, how else?
Well, once the Office of Water Safety is established, then there's a group that will form from that, that any stakeholder who has participated in the drowning commission, or, definitely the commissioners, but also the other stakeholders who joined us, will hopefully join to be able to thoroughly focus on statewide where we're going. So right now, yes, we expire on December 22nd, but I consider that as a pause until we got the water safety, Office of Water Safety created, so that once that office is created, then we can pick up and continue our work. But our voices are still being heard. We're still being heard with what we're doing. Conferences that I'm at the statewide physical education teachers conference, explaining the drowning commission, explaining what we did, explaining our work and why we did it and what we learned from it, and how can you take what we've got and run with it. That's something that I've done even before I was the commissioner, was educating educators about aquatics. But we're still doing that. And so I think let our work speak for us for now, before we continue to develop more. Because we got to see what legislatively the governor is going to tackle, and then what she's going to have the assembly members and the state senators work on as bills to tackle. Because there's a lot in those reports. There's a lot in those 230 plus pages.
Another one is designating lifeguards as first responders.
Yes, that is a big one that we are advocating for. We had a tragedy Christmas a few years ago where first responders were responding to a fire in the Rochester area, and someone decided to use them as target practice. And so after that, our first responder laws were tightened. And so we want to make sure that lifeguards have those same protections that all first responders in the state of New York have. And the state a couple of years ago gave 911 operators and dispatchers first responders as communication status. So that's why I'm positive. I'm optimistic that will definitely be one of the bills that will pass.
Thank you for that. Other questions?
This is David Bell. Funding's always a concern for a lot of these efforts. How much money, more or less, did New York State provide for the commission?
Well, through New York Swims, they provided money for grants for infrastructure. That I believe was 150 million. Was it million or billion, Kate?
It was 150 million.
Million.
But for the commission itself, zero. We were not paid. We were not provided funds. We did have 2 in-person meetings in Albany. where we were able to get our transportation reimbursed.
Yeah. Every commission in the state of New York is assigned an office, and because no one wanted us because we were dealing with water, we ended up with two offices. So we had the office of Parks, Recreation, Historic Preservation, and we had the Department of Health as both of our offices to give us support. All of our meetings were recorded, like I said. You can see if you read in our report, there's a summary of all of those who spoke, right? Their biographies. Right next to it is a date, and that is the date that they spoke to us. So if you want to hear what a particular speaker said to us, by all means, go to all of the meetings are recorded. They're on our website. You'll be able to see who spoke to us, and we had some really, really good speakers, really good speakers.
I'll just share really quickly because I've got the website up for those of you who don't. I've thrown the site into the chat and I'll do it again. The members and meetings section, you just need to scroll a little bit further down the page, and then the final reports as you continue to scroll are listed there as well on the main landing page. So I'll throw that landing page into the chat again here now. Other questions for Kaitlin and Marrick?
Hi, this is Eileen. I have a question. Thank you so much for the information shared. Will the water safety and competency curriculums be state specific or national? You know, just the idea that people move and the whole emphasis with like data collection, so that since this is an overall national objective, that those stats come up, you know, data collected relatively consistently and reported consistently, not just at the state level, which I know is a huge challenge, but also that it makes sense at the national. You know, you don't go through a second reconciliation.
Marrick, do you want to take the curriculum question?
Curriculum, we are waiting for that water safety education bill to pass. Once that passes, then there's a team to be able to work on that water safety, that curriculum that will then be disseminated. We have been collecting pieces and parts of that as we've gone along. But that's what we're waiting for. That's why we're pausing. Plus we needed to get this, we needed to get the drowning report done by the deadline that the governor gave us. So that was the priority at the time. But like I said, here at the state physical education conference this week, we've got workshops going. One of the workshops is a water safety education workshop. Those ladies who are doing that are going to be part of the team to help draft our water safety education curriculum. So thank you all. I need to run because I do have another presentation that I have to do at 2:00. So
thank you, Marrick.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marrick.
Marrick.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Tony, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, thanks, Tina. Tony Gomez here from Public Health Seattle and Dr. King County. So Kaitlin, I attached a link to a paper we did a couple years ago noting, and it's just congratulations, fabulous work out of New York overall. It's amazing what you've accomplished. And part of that is our paper, our research documented that New York and Illinois, you know, had the best designated swim area programs in the country. And you could see the association with drowning in the swim beach sorts of waters there. And kind of think about, you know, Doug Sackett's time at New York Department of Health and helping with the model health aquatic code and kind of just in both the regulated pools and regulated beaches work. And, you know, he kind of referenced, you know, New York had 14 miles of regulated beach and, you know, well over 100. But we've got 0 miles of regulated beach. And it really is a part of our public health, public safety urgency that needs to have been addressed really 40 years ago, but we're still working through it. What's the status of kind of that regulatory work with both, you know, the swimming pools and the swim beaches? local and state health kind of reeling from budget cuts and kind of pulling back, or is that work still recognized as some of the best there is?
Well, I think there's a project happening right now. It's called Plus Pool, PLUS Pool. It is this concept. It's about 10 years old, but the prototype is now in the water. It's a tank that's going to sit in the East River in the shape of a plus sign, and it's essentially 4 different pools connected to be a plus sign. It's going to pull in the East River water, filter it, and that's what's going to be in the actual swimming pool. And why that's relevant to this question is because over the last 2-3 years, they have, taken great strides and had success in changing regulation about open water swimming, and creating like essentially more access for people to go swimming in the river, which is over time getting cleaner, and with this technology going to be better. So I would say that with kind of the foundation that you explained, that they were already doing this, that they already had this lead in regulated bodies of water, not just in New York City, but also in Long Island and in the Great Lakes. With the addition of now kind of taking on the river, I say they stay kind of it's at the forefront still. I think they're still leading based on what we've seen. And that local issue is really, or it's not an issue, that local project is really exciting, because there's great promise. And if they can do it there, then they can do that, everywhere. So it's something to just keep an eye on and watch from afar. Plus Pool.
I see Al Johnson from Vermont on. Just kind of FYI, there is some effort to integrate like the boating, drowning, injury data with some of the kind of other open water data, because people swim from the boat to the beach and drown, or to the beach to the boat, or like we had recently, the kids fell off a paddleboard. They were okay, but the dads went out to save them and both drowned. And those stats are not included in our boating related drownings, even though they really are. So Vermont and New York and Washington have kind of looked at that. So Safe States through the Coast Guard NASBLA grant, looking at recreational boating safety, is going to be talking with, Tina and our group with the National Water Safety Action Plan to learn a little bit more about how we try to do some more data integration around the undercounts, and just, between the humanity burden, but also cost burden too.
What I'm seeing, Tony, just is that individual hospital systems are looking at that issue, exactly the boating drowning issue. It's not happening that I've seen it beyond like what we talked about at the commission. Otherwise, it's like actual, hospital systems looking at it and seeing what they can do with their own individual reporting and with their emergency, city MD or urgent cares rather. Also pulling data from what's happening there, not just what's in their emergency room and not just what's in their ICU wing. Sorry, Al.
No, that's okay. The state of Washington did a great project with the Safe States Alliance 2 years ago, and myself in Vermont, the boating safety program here, as well as I think it's called Langone Health down on Long Island. We both did a project that we're wrapping up now in the current year, and it's pretty much a data linkage project that it uses more than the boating accident reporting database that we use through our RBS grant, which is just the Coast Guard platform. And just like Washington, we found about a 10x level of underreporting of incidents on the water. So that's just the beginning of the whole thing. And then that just covers, like Tony said, that's just boating and somebody drowning from a boat, not swimming from shore to help somebody, or all the other consequences that happen near shore, near docks, and everything else. So I think there's a lot of collaboration that can happen with getting more data in a more robust kind of fashion for us to look at this. But we're starting. So I think it's a good start. It's a good progress.
That's great. I'm familiar with that work, Langone in particular, on the boating safety, and I think what you guys are doing is really great and spot on. Yeah.
Other questions? I'll let you simmer for a minute in case you do have additional questions and you're trying to frame them in your mind. Just a reminder, this has been recorded. We'll get it posted up onto the website. I'll share out the link to you all directly so you have that to either review again or to share with your colleagues. It's been great information. Kaitlin, I don't know if it's possible to get a copy of the slide presentation that we could also share with folks. That would be great. And then for those who are or considering the Association of Aquatic Professionals NDPA conference taking place in February at the Broadmoor in Colorado Springs, the U.S. National Water Safety Action Plan will be hosting 2 sessions, one on Monday where we'll talk about the resources and the website and all of the things that we have that are available to you publicly. And then the second session will be more of a kind of a roundtable working session opportunity workshop where we're going to bring in leaders from states, counties, and communities who either have or have been working on strategies in their own communities, and to be able to share that information with folks in that kind of roundtable discussion setting. So we're really excited about those opportunities, and we'd love to have you join us. So just sharing that with you all. Any other questions before we wrap for today? All right.
Hey, Tina,
Kirby?
real quick, it's Kirby. I got a quick question for Kaitlin. When I've been doing my research here in Florida, my Department of Children and Families, our main issue is with residential pools. Have you guys noticed, obviously outside of Manhattan, but within New York State itself, an issue with residential pool drownings in your state? Because when I found a chart about 2 years ago that was published, it showed that you guys were in the top 5, like over 500,000 residential pools. So it was just a curious question that popped into my head.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Yes, we have a lot of residential pools, and yes, it's a factor. If you look at just one of our counties, Suffolk County on Long Island, it's fairly large, like geographically expansive. They saw like a 60% increase in drownings. What we saw as a commission, looking deeper into it, is well, the insurance market lobbyists are successful in getting pool fencing and different kind of things taken away from what was mandated before. There's a lack of education for residential pool owners on what keeping your pool safe looks like. There is issues of even, it's not just not having a fence. Like, you can have a fence around the property, but if you're not thoughtful about what you have next to the fence, someone could easily climb up over the fence. So all these little different things. I'm just trying to go back in my mind. I can't remember exactly what we wrote, but it was definitely something along the lines of like, stop repealing pool fencing requirements and pool cover requirements, because that's absolutely happening. We brought in the pool alarm people. We thought that was interesting technology. It's not, a cure-all. And I think really where we gravitated to was educating the person. Maybe it's when they get their homeowner's insurance policy and they have a pool, whatever it is, but there's got to be some sort of intervention there so that the person that owns the pool knows what the expectation needs to be. Yeah, because obviously the child, and they're typically under 4 who are drowning in them, they don't know any better. We can't intervene there. It's really on the operator.
Okay, thank you. We have legislation here in Florida, but the last major residential pool, the Residential Pool Swimming Act, was passed 25 years ago. So it's the major loophole or not loophole, but the major problem that we have. I mean, of the DCF drownings reported for abuse or neglect investigation, 890 of my 1,334 from 2009 to 2024 occurred in residential pools. And we've got 825 miles of coastline, and it's not ocean drownings because we have lifeguards. It's the residential pools that don't have lifeguards. So We're number one in the nation with last I knew we had an estimated 1.6, but that was 1.6 million residential pools.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
that was published in January of 24, so I'm estimating now that we're somewhere between 1.8 and 2 million by now.
It's like an incentive package for safety protocols or safety interventions needs to come about because it's an eyesore. No one wants to look at it. They want to have their place looking palatial. You know, that's what we're working against. It's crazy.
Yep. Agreed. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question.
Megan?
Yeah, thank you. So Kaitlin, thank you so much for doing this for us today. This has been so helpful. One of the things that is on my mind is that I imagine there's a lot of above ground pools, particularly in like the northern and western parts of New York State. And I'm thinking about the CPSC recall of above ground pools. I wonder if there has been any, and that recall doesn't mean like, you know, taking the pools out. It means amending how the pools are structured, right? So like a retroactive adjustment to the pool. And wonder, like, one, are you aware of drowning rates in above ground pools? And two, you know, has there been any thought to that CPSC recommendation and including that in some of this information as it rolls out over the next 12 months?
Thank you. That's a good question. I think that the above ground pool situation fell into a larger bucket of places that are currently like collections of water that are not considered pools or swimmable or whatever, and are therefore unregulated and are able to sit in any condition that they're in. And so like the visual that I get is like a giant basin that collects, you know, water and has mosquitoes. There's no mandatory water safety regulated things that you have to implement. And I wonder if above ground pools fell into that. That would have been a question for Marrick, and I can follow up. Yeah, I need to follow up to get the exact answer for that. That's a good question. But to answer it kind of, if above ground pools did fall under that category, which it might, because if you're putting it in an above ground pool in your backyard, you don't need to really do anything or check with anyone. Anyone can do it. So I think it did fall under that, and we called for greater regulation around it.
Great. Yeah, and I was thinking about the Head Start programs earlier when you were talking about, you know, the children under 4 that are drowning in residential pools, finding a way. But I imagine many of those like in-ground residential pools, maybe those kids are not part of Head Start programs. But just finding a way to access that population would be helpful, I think.
Well, it's tough, right? Because it's like you think of the parents who, you know, thought their kid was in the other room, and it's like, well, what could have made a difference there? And that's why like the pool alarm sounded interesting, but like, you know, it's just one of these things where I don't have the answer. And I think that's what we're all working towards, because it's a real issue. People drowning in residential pools, little kids, babies. And the Head Start program, like early intervention, early education, great, creates awareness, but does it actually create a barrier the way we need it to? I don't know. Sometimes I think about like, what if the rule was, yeah, you had to have those automatic pool covers across at all times, unless when you're operating the pool. I mean, that's not enforceable, and you know, who knows how that would play out. But like, short of that, what do you do besides fill in the pool?
Right, and I know that is a regulation that's acceptable in like Connecticut, for example. But I think also in Arizona, where we saw that Emily Kaiser's young son drowned because they didn't put their automatic pool cover. They didn't close the cover. So I think that's like a very real that's a reality, that unless people really understand the risks, which as you said, is something we're all working to figure out how to communicate.
Mm-hmm. But maybe it's when you buy the house that has the pool, and part of that, getting that insurance to obtain for the house and the pool, is this education piece, and really driving home the risk of this amenity. maybe that's part of the answer.
Well, I see we're about 5 minutes past the top of the hour. So I want to keep everyone from probably additional meetings or whatever you might have on your schedule today. But I want to thank Kaitlin and Marrick, who's had to drop off, for their time today and for sharing this information. Again, I'll grab the slides from you in an email, and then we'll make sure to get that out to everyone. So thank you all and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.